Welcome to Postcards, a brief look at people, places, the arts and curiosities from around the world. On today's program, in order to sell its contents, Christie's completely reconstruct a Swiss country house. We take a look at the refurbished Royal Opera House in Covent Garden. For animal lovers, we feature the famous Battersea Dogs Home. And Aladdin's Cave of Antique Treasures in Birmingham. And silversmiths create cutlery to celebrate Sheffield's 700th anniversary. But first up, the Italian city of Florence. Scholars tell us that here was born the miraculous outpouring of art in the 15th century that we know as the Renaissance. But the Renaissance was about more than art. Leonardo da Vinci, creator of the Last Supper and the Mona Lisa, was equally fascinated by machines, particularly flying machines. The drawings he left have now been constructed as working models and are on show in London's Science Museum. The exhibition reveals that the idea that Leonardo was unique in being a brilliant scientist and engineer is wide of the mark. Florence Cathedral stood for years unfinished. Nobody could work out how to build a dome big enough to span the space, yet light enough to stay up, until Filippo Brunelleschi came along. The exhibition shows Brunelleschi's sketches for the dome itself, which took 25 years to finish, and for the machines used in building it. This gigantic hoist, standing 20 metres high, carried bricks and other materials up to the men working on the dome. It's no accident that the models in the exhibition all come from Italy, a rich country during the Renaissance. In Siena, Francesco di Giorgi developed this ingenious device to clear mud from the shallow river port. The display includes computer graphics to show how these models would have looked like in situ. But deciding which were designed to work and which were just intellectual exercises is not an easy task. Leonardo himself realised that what his flying man machine would have to carry was too much to be propelled by a person. On the other hand, it's quite probable that the horseless carriage would have been built. This is what it looks like, but whether it ever moved through the streets of medieval Siena is an open question. But these models give an insight into an age when the division between science and art was far less clear than it is today. The inside of Christie's auction house in London this week has taken on a distinctly 19th century feel. You can wander around complete rooms full of fine furniture and old masters. It's not a redecoration, but a reconstruction of the inside of a grand country house in Switzerland, Le Bois-Meralt. The owners are selling off the inside of the house lock, stock and barrel, with a view to remodel and modernise. Providing you like 19th century art, there's something to suit all pockets. This huge book cupboard is expected to fetch $16,000 US. While an antique Agra carpet from North India is expected to go for 3 times that. Yet you might pick up these 100-year-old Swiss tin drinking tankards for $160. The collection comes from everywhere across Europe. When it was built at the turn of the century, the aristocratic owners brought items from their houses in various other countries. You'll find Dutch furniture, Belgian silver, Persian carpets, Italian, Spanish and Portuguese paintings, and ceramics from France and Germany. There are about 1,000 lots in the sale. The total proceeds are expected to top $2.4 million US. The strains of grand opera will once again waft through the narrow streets of Covent Garden, London's one-time fruit and vegetable market. The reopened Royal Opera House incorporates the original market's 19th century floral hall, in a bold and widely applauded move to create wider public access to this traditionally elite home of opera. The roots of the redesign go back 25 years, but it was only with an award of $126 million US from the proceeds of the National Lottery that dreams of a dedicated arts centre could be fully realised. Because of the wonderful lottery windfall, there is now an arts building which is probably the most lavish opera house in Europe and arguably in the world. not only for performances, but also backstage for scenery and props. The backstage store can hold scenery for 6 opera productions at a time. Each can be moved rapidly on and off stage for performances or rehearsals through the big red door at the rear. Conditions for the 1,000 people who work here are a vast improvement on the Dickensian ones of the past. And it's more than just a home for opera. Dancers of the Royal Ballet Company are moving to Covent Garden from their present rather cramped home in West London. 6 airy new ballet studios have been built, as well as state-of-the-art physiotherapy suites. Thoroughly modern design of the complex encourages equally modern experimental artistic performances to take place alongside the traditional. After all the delays, revisions and all too public management rows of the last few years, the final touches are being put on the $342 million US opera and arts complex, ready for its first full production next week. Monday morning in Battersea, South London. From all over the city, animal ambulances are bringing last night's collection of stray and abandoned dogs to the sanctuary of Battersea Dogs Home. The dogs have spent the night in police stations and they're anxious and frightened as Battersea workers check them over and admit them to the home. Battersea looks after the dogs while their owners are given a statutory 7 days to reclaim them. In 70% of cases, the owners fail to appear and their dogs become Battersea residents. Many here are victims of the festive season, when pets given as Christmas presents can quickly lose their appeal. The home has taken in more than 300 dogs over a period of just a few weeks. It's been their busiest Christmas for over a decade, part of a general cyclical increase. Some owners, though, do come looking for their dogs. Tanya woke up on Sunday morning to discover her pet was missing. From the description Battersea workers gave her over the phone, she's hoping he's ended up here. Luckily for both of them, he has, and an anxious 24 hours are over. Reuniting dogs with their owners is a service that's grown as British attitudes towards their pets have changed. Originally known as a temporary home for lost and starving dogs, Battersea began life in 1860 to care for the stray dogs roaming London at the time. No photos survive of its founder, Mary Tilby, and she died without seeing British attitudes towards animals transformed. Royal patronage of the home, 25 years after its inception, was the key. Today, Battersea still enjoys royal patronage, and the home has become a British institution. Tens of thousands of visitors flock here every year, hoping to find a new pet amongst the unclaimed strays and unwanted animals waiting for a home. Media coverage of unwanted Christmas dogs has resulted in more visitors than usual. By 11 o'clock, the waiting room is full. There are up to 500 dogs and 80 cats in the home at any one time. Not all are strays. About a third of the animals here have been brought in by owners unable to cope. Many are the pedigree dogs that require extra time and attention. After filling in an application form, potential owners go through a series of interviews with Battersea's rehoming staff to ensure they're matched up with a suitable dog. Inquiries are made about their circumstances, their lifestyle, whether they have children, other pets, whether they live in a house or a flat, and how many hours they're out during the day if they work. The Clark family have already seen the dog they want, but they have a cat, and their chosen dog turns out to have a problem in that area. The computer suggests a collie called Power Ranger could be more suitable for the Clarks. Clark's meeting with Power Ranger goes well, but the computer records show that he needs to demonstrate he can tolerate cats. A meeting is arranged and a cat with nerves of steel is brought to one of the home's meeting rooms. Power Ranger ignores her and passes the test. The cat breathes a sigh of relief, and Power Ranger, now renamed Ben by the Clarks, has a new family. Battersea's unique dating agency has produced another successful match. Over in the cattery, things are slightly calmer, and one of its youngest residents is enjoying a quiet moment. Many people aren't aware that Battersea Dogs Home also takes in cats, around 3,500 last year alone. The home says it's one of London's best-kept secrets. But as appealing as the animals might be, keeping their temporary lodgings clean is one of the dirtier jobs to be found at Battersea. These trainee kennel hands are midway through an introductory course. No specific qualifications are required to work here, but applicants must be prepared to muck in and have a genuine desire to care for animals. With 130 years' experience behind it, Battersea prides itself on its ability to rehome 90% of the dogs who arrive here. Only very sick animals are put to sleep. Dogs who are suitable for rehoming, like Nova, are kept until they find a home. She's been here for a year, the longest resident, but staff are confident she too will meet her match. What makes them so sure is the success in rehabilitating animals with behavioural problems. The staff are skilled in behavioural assessment and able to re-educate dogs who might otherwise be too dangerous or too difficult to rehome. The work is done through play routines and by rewarding a dog for good behaviour. Pauline, the boxer dog, has been through her period of rehabilitation and is looking forward to going home with new owners, John and Shane. Their old boxer died last week of cancer, and when they saw Pauline, now renamed Bosco, they bonded instantly. The cost of a Battersea dog is $80 or $100 depending on whether it's a pedigree. The cost covers inoculations and the injection of an identification microchip. If the dog is lost again, it can be scanned and its owners traced. Like hundreds of thousands of dogs over the years, Bosco is about to become part of a new family.
The lost animal is scanned as they arrive, and she automatically comes up with a number.
You're not a number, you're a free dog.
So if you'd like to make your way around to reception, thank you. Okay.
Everybody who works at Battersea says it's an extremely emotional place. An animal arrives traumatised and rejected, but soon leaves with new owners who are determined to give it another chance. It's the start of a new life for all concerned, and yet another successful marriage for that most British of British institutions, Battersea Dogs Home. Thousands of bargain hunters from all over the world arrived at Birmingham's National Exhibition Centre. Inside they found a veritable Aladdin's cave of treasures displayed by more than 100 antique dealers. The Association of Art and Antique Dealers Fair is one of the most important events of its kind in Europe. There's a huge variety of objects for sale, from this beautiful 17th century Dutch mother-of-pearl plaque by Cornelius Bedleken, to this full-sized stuffed American buffalo, which appeared alongside Kevin Costner in Dances with Wolves, a snip at $30,400. On a more serious note, there are some fine paintings. Blind Man's Buff by Arturo Ricci is a perfect example of the artist's work and is valued at $200,000. It captures the spirit and the fun of the game. More than 10,000 works are on display, furniture of the highest quality. grandfather clocks to set any customer's pulse racing. And these rare figurines depicting scenes from Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. This 19th century bronze is expected to fetch $25,600. The whole fair is a magnet for dealer and visitor alike, with a wide range of goods and prices to appeal to all. The fair is expected to attract up to 15,000 visitors. The city of Sheffield in northern England. For decades, its name was synonymous with steel, its foundries producing everything from battleships to cutlery. The city's discovery of stainless steel was its greatest contribution to Britain's cutlery industry, and although the steel works may have all but disappeared, cutlery making has proved more enduring. A unique canteen of cutlery made by Britain's best designers was commissioned by Sheffield to celebrate not only the new millennium, but the 700th anniversary of cutlery making in the city. Knives and scissors are known to have been made there since 1297, thanks to a tax return referring to Robert the Cutler. It started off as a cottage industry with a blacksmith forging knives. Sheffield had an advantage in that there are fast-flowing streams in the area, and the local gritstone was very good at making grindstones for sharpening the blades. Combined with a skilled workforce, it made Sheffield the centre of cutlery for the world. All the pieces are made from silver, with designs like Stella Campion's Griffon knife and dragon fork, which might prove hard to handle, to this fish slice made from a thick gauge of silver decorated with gold and edged with gold. And this serving spoon and teaspoon made from sterling silver, natural shell, twigs and twine, a personal comment on the evolution of the spoon. The assumption that Robert the Cutler was a designer underpins Sheffield's decision to fund individually made pieces, rather than hold a design competition for work that could be mass-produced. The collection also celebrates the founding of the Association of British Designer Silversmiths 4 years ago. According to Helen Phillips, curator of decorative art at the Sheffield City Museum, British silversmiths are setting standards for the rest of the world. Nigel Turner's dessert spoon is one of the more humorous pieces in the collection, currently on display at the London Barbican Centre. Each item of cutlery bears the Millennium Collection's unique hallmark, highlighting Sheffield's world-famous association with cutlery. Eventually, the collection will go on permanent display in the city for future generations to enjoy. This beautiful 18th century riverside villa at Hampton, southwest London, was created by one of England's most famous actors, David Garrick. Garrick was one of the main artistic and social figures in London and almost single-handedly revived popular interest in Shakespeare. The famous actor-manager dedicated this temple to the bard in the grounds of his Thames-side villa and commissioned a statue of Shakespeare by the French sculptor Roubilac. For many years, the temple sat derelict, vandalised and uncared for. But in 1996, Richmond Council, a residents group, and the Hampton Riverside Trust decided to restore it and open the villa to the public. Today it houses a copy of the Shakespeare statue, the original of which is in the British Museum. It's an image which has been reproduced on countless portraits and postcards. Garrick would doubtless have been pleased to see himself immortalised alongside his hero. An exhibition displays the highlights of the famous actor-manager's career. In 1741, he took London by storm in his first Shakespearean role as Richard III. He later became the key Macbeth of his generation, defining the role for years to come. Garrick's cult of Shakespeare transformed the Midlands market town of Stratford-upon-Avon into an international literary shrine following the Shakespeare Jubilee held there in 1769. Through English heritage and lottery grants, the landscape has been restored to its 18th century glory. There are plans to hold concerts and readings here in the idyllic Arcadian grounds, designed by Garrick's neighbour, Capability Brown. It makes an ideal setting. The The Royal Botanic Gardens at Kew are famous for the largest and most diverse collection of rare and exotic plants on the planet. But even Kew has its very special moments, and one is the annual Orchid Festival. A world leader in all aspects of botanical conservation, the festival provides a rare opportunity to bring out some of the most rare and endangered species of orchid. It sets about dispelling the myth that orchids are difficult to grow at home because of their exotic nature. Now that people have a greater personal knowledge of science and better reference sources at their disposal, they can enjoy cultivating even the most unusual species. When visitors have learned, among other things, that orchids are pollinated by bats and specialised moths in addition to normal insects, they can take refuge in Kew's Marianne North Gallery with its unique collection of over 800 oil paintings of flowers. And plenty feature that most fascinating floral family, the orchid. A traditional Burns Night gathering. Once a year for the Scottish deer sporter all around the world, more than 1,000 Burns societies from Canada to New Zealand will gather to pay tribute to Robert Burns, Scotland's greatest poet. Burns Night is traditionally a time when the Scots can revel in a poet who gave the world some of the greatest love poems in any language. Most people know Burns as the man who wrote Auld Lang Syne, but for Scots and fellow sympathisers, Burns is a writer whose voice struggles to be heard above that of the wassailing expatriate. He's become that rare thing for a poet, a national icon, and many toasts will be drunk to him on this night. And that's all for today. Join us again next time for a postcard look at interesting people, places and the arts.